Does anybody here have something to say about Pesach in which the Rebbe is fakoch that's not included in the list? Oh, I expected all the girls would scream Mashiach. Mashiach, what's Pesach? Mashiach. Pesach about Mashiach. So how does that work? How does that work? There's a halacha in Hilchos Shabbos called Eidiv. And you know anything about an Eidiv? An Eidiv is two things. An Eidiv is two things. What are the two things? Anybody know what two things of an Eidiv? Anybody? An Eidiv is food and a wall. An Eidiv is two things. If you have 100 people living in a building, they're all indoors. But you're not allowed to carry from one apartment to another apartment because if everyone eats by themselves, they become separate reshuyos. So you take a piece of bread for all the people, you put it in one apartment, you're all going to share this food, and then they can walk through the apartment building, right? Now, if you're outside, you have to make a wall. Instead of making a wall, you make a string. Now, which of those two parts of the Eidiv is more important? Putting down the food or putting up the mechitza? When do you make the bracha on the Eidiv? When you make an Eidiv chatzes, when do you make the bracha? When you make the wire or when you put on the bread? The important thing is the food. The food is the Eidiv. You know why? Because Eidiv means to mix people together. It doesn't mean to make a wall. The halacha on Shabbos is, if you didn't make an Eidiv for Shabbos, you can't make it on Shabbos. What happens if you made an Eidiv, you put on the food, and the string tore? What do? Al pi din, you can get a goy to fix your wall. You can even take a bunch of animals, line them up and make the wall for you. You can even take a bunch of people, line them up and make them into a mechitza. There's only one rule. They're not allowed to realize why they're standing in one place. Mashiach. Right, what's the Mashiach? What's the Mashiach? There's so many different aspects to Mashiach and Pesach, but let me start from a funny one. What is an unusual feature of the Yomtov of Pesach which you don't have in any other Yomtov? I'm going to tell you the answer because I don't want to waste time. That you don't say Shechayanu when you bench Lich the last days. You don't say Shechayanu when you bench the last days of Sukkot, you bench Lich. You make Shechayanu. Right? Obviously, Shavuos, you make a Shechayanu Pesach. And by the way, another thing which is very important, I asked the girls in the other room, when your parents make Kiddush by the night of the Seder, whether they make Kiddush with their fathers. I tell my kids to say Kiddush with me. But even if your father tells you to be Yoytze is Kiddush, one thing is for sure, you have to make your own Beidei Pri HaGofen. If your father says be Yoytze my Kiddush, which is fine, the Beidei Pri HaGofen is making your own. Because you know what? Api halacha, you shouldn't say Beidei Pri HaGofen 4 times. There's from Jews only say Beidei Pri HaGofen twice. The second Beidei Pri HaGofen, the fourth Beidei Pri HaGofen, the Bracha Shenetzricha. You made a Beidei Pri HaGofen already. You didn't bench in between, you make a second Beidei Pri HaGofen. And the answer is, because the Dalet Kaises are for mitzvahs. And the Beidei Pri HaGofen by the Seder is not a Bechas HaNehenin, it's a Bechas HaMitzvah. So just like the second cup of wine, or the third cup of wine, the fourth cup of wine, you're making your own Beidei Pri HaGofen, the first cup of wine, this is my opinion, even if your father says, B'yetze my Kiddush, the Beidei Pri HaGofen, you should say with him. But, let's go the other way. What happens if you belong to the family where your father tells you to make Kiddush with me? What are you not supposed to say with your father? Shechayanu. If you belong to a household where your father says to you, when I make Kiddush, everybody should read Kiddush quiet to me, which is what I do with my family. The girls who benched Licht already made the Shechayanu by the Hadlik Ner Shel Yomtov. You can't make a second Shechayanu. So everybody has to pay attention. If your father says B'yotze is Kiddush, make the Beidei Pri HaGofen. If your father says don't B'yotze is Kiddush, don't say Shechayanu. Okay, just these are little details that are very, very important. But the last day's Pesach, we don't say Shechayanu. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I just got confused because I thought you were saying the first days we don't say Shechayanu.
No, the last days. Now, what's the reason? Because one Yom Tov. Shmini Atzeres is the Yom Tov B'fnei Atzmei. Right? Shmini Atzeres is considered the fourth regel. Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and the regel of Levi goes against Yosef. The last days of Pesach are a continuation of the same Yom Tov. We can't make it Shechayanu. That is the reason of the halacha. What is the reason Al Pi Chassidus? So this is a story that you all know, right? You know the story?
Yeah.
That the Rebbe was sitting by the Seder with her sisters. And they were talking about why you make a Shechayanu. And the Rebbe was arguing with Chana Gerari. Chana Gerari was saying that this is the Yom Tov called Yom Tov, and the Rebbe was saying, no, it's not. They were little kids. The Rebbe was 4 or 5. She argued with her big sister, no, it's different. Because of the last days of Pesach were the same like all the other Yom Tovim. How come we bench Licht and we didn't make Shechayanu? Remember, in the house of the Rebbeim. before the Rebbe made Mifta Nesher, girls mentioned Licht and they made a bracha. The Rebbe Achei Temimim grew up mentioning Licht and Shabbos candles and making a bracha at a very early age. So she says to her big sister, how come? So the Rebbe Rashab overhears, the Frierdiker Rebbe hears the conversation between the girls. He repeats it to the Rebbe Rashab, and the Rebbe Rashab tells him a story that happened some 40 years before, in Tafresh Chavhei, in 1865, when the Tzemach Tzedek, where the same question came up. And Tzemach Tzedek said that Pesach is about Yetzias Mitzrayim, Pesach is about Exodus. The beginning of Pesach is about the beginning of Yetzias Mitzrayim, and the end of Pesach is about the end of Yetzias Mitzrayim. The end of Yetzias Mitzrayim is Mashiach. And he explained to them, this is L'kutei Sichos, that a shechayanu you cannot make on something that isn't here yet, right? When you have a seasonal fruits that have a season, like dates or pomegranates or I don't know what, peaches. So when the new fruit comes into season, you make a shechayanu. The first time you see a new fruit, I mean today in America you get fruits a whole year, but in the olden days we had peaches only in the summer, plums only in the summer. When the new fruit comes into season, you can make a shechayanu. You're not making shechayanu on the fruit, you're making shechayanu on the season. Right? Does anybody know what is the halachic name of the bracha shechayanu? What is shechayanu called in the Gemara? It's called zman. Shechayanu is called zman. Because shechayanu is lizman hazeh, a new time. The calendar turned, it's a new year, it's a new season. You see? So, but you can only make the shechayanu on something which you can't make a shechayanu on peaches that you're going to get in 2 weeks. You can only make the shechayanu when the peaches are sitting in front of you and they're ripe and edible. You understand? So Tzemach Tzedek told them Mashiach hasn't come yet. And you cannot make a shechayanu on a Yomtiv which is not actual. And that's why you don't make a shechayanu al pi Chassidus in the last days of Pesach. Al pi halacha you don't say shechayanu in the last days of Pesach because it's the same Yomtiv. Al pi Chassidus you don't make a shechayanu last days of Pesach because we're waiting for this Geulah Melech HaMashiach. Until the full revelation of Mashiach, you cannot make a shechayanu on something which is still happening. You see, when it happens, then we'll make a shechayanu. From this sikh, it's implicit that after Mashiach comes, the Chacham are going up with some explanation for the last days of Pesach, you make a shechayanu. That's Mashiach.
Why does some people do shechayanu on clothing if it's
about time? You don't make shechayanu. We also make shechayanu on clothing if they're very, very special to us. I cannot answer the time aspect when it comes to clothing, other than to say usually you get special clothing for a special occasion. But that's neither here nor there. It's because for you it's new. In your life, in your time, it's new. But you're asking a very good question. But it's still true that in Gemara, shechayanu is called zman. So it's called. Go ahead.
If according to the halachic reason why we don't say shechayanu the second days.
So after Mashiach comes, we're still not going to say shechayanu.
No, why would we say it the second night at all?
Oh, so that's the whole idea. We have 2 days Yomtiv, and we say 2 shechayanus.
It's not the same.
Even though the whole reason for the second day Yomtiv is Fekad Diyayma. You know, I want to tell you something, which is really crazy. It's mamish nuts. I was sitting with the seminary girls, and we talked about matzah. One of the things I talked about was matzah. And I told them the first night of matzah is emunah, the second night of matzah is refuah, healing. And in Eretz Yisrael, you got to mix the emunah with the refuah together because they only have one seder. Okay? This is a mind-blowing fact. The Alter Rebbe said, you heard of the Alter Rebbe, yeah? You heard of the Alter Rebbe, yeah? The Alter Rebbe said that if he had enough power, he would institute Yomtiv Sheni Shel Goliath in Eretz Yisrael. The Yidden living in Yerushalayim today, and in cities where they for sure the Shluchim reached in the time of the second Beis Hamikdash, 2 days Yomtiv. Because the whole 2-day Yomtiv business, if you study it technically from a halachic point of view, it makes very, very little sense. In other words, the conservative Yidden, whose issue really is that they don't really believe in God, cancel the second day of Rosh Hashanah, they cancel the second Seder. They can learn. They're scholars. They have no Amunah, they have no Eibishter, but they know they have the Torah. You know what I'm saying? I once saw a conservative Shulchan Aruch. It's a scholarly book. It's people work very hard on creating all that shtus. It's intelligent shtus. I mean, the best kind of shtus is intelligent. The best kind of shaita is an intelligent shaita. There's no explanation. Why do we have 2 days Yom Tov? Because the times of the first Beis Hamikdash, there's no 2 days Yom Tov. First Pesach Mikdash is no 2 days Yomtov. Why not? Because when the Chaydish happened, they would go up on a mountain and make a fire. And 30 or 40 miles away, there was other Yidden on a mountain. They were all prepared. They made a fire. And within an hour, Yidden living as far away as Pros, which is, 300 miles from Yerushalayim, knew that it was a Chaydish. But Shia Mashur, they would go up, they had a whole series of mountains from Yerushalayim. The calendars made in the Beis HaMikdash. As soon as the Bezdin said Mekudesh, there was a series of mountains that went mamish to the edge of the yishuv of Jewish people, and that night every Jew in the Jewish world knew it was Chaydish. Came by Yisheni, along came the Tzdukim, and they used to cross it up. They disagreed with us about the calendar, so they would make fires in the wrong night of tzalachas on purpose, so people would get confused. So they made a new rule: you have to have shluchim. So in the time of the first Beis HaMikdash, which is a much longer period than the second Beis HaMikdash, you knew when a Chaydish was within an hour or two of the Koyanim of the Bezdin saying Mekudesh, because you saw the fire. It's only the second Beis HaMikdash. After the Tzdukim are not the beginning of the second Beis HaMikdash. The Tzdukim are the Talmidim of Antignis Ish Seichi. You learn Pirkei Avos, yeah? You have Shimon HaTzadik, Antignis Ish, Anshker Sagedayla, Antignis Ish Seichi, Shimon HaTzadik, Antignis Ish Seichi, Talmidim with Tzadik Ubaitis. So there was a long period into Bai Yisheni that people were still behaving until the Tzdukim up with their tricks. And then they decided to send Shluchim. So the moment they started sending Shluchim, so Yidden who lived beyond a 12 or 13-day journey did not know when Yom Tov was on time, especially Tishrei. Because Tishrei you lose the next day because of Yom Kippur.
13-day journey? So
yeah. They couldn't travel on Shabbos and they couldn't travel on Yom Tov. So the Shluchim would go, as soon as they announced the Chaydish, the Shluchim would travel out to all the places where Jews lived to tell them that the Chaydish was either on Monday or Tuesday, a day before, a day later. Okay? So all those Yidden knew when the Chaydish was, so they kept one day Yom Tov. But if you lived beyond how far the Shluchim could reach, they were running on horses. They were not going on a supersonic train or a jet, you understand? Or sending an email. So if you lived beyond that parameter, so you didn't know when Yom Tov was, so you kept 2 days Yom Tov because you're not sure. It's fake at the Yom. You with me so far? You understand what I'm saying?
Pardon me. I'm just confused. They learned about when Rosh Chodesh was after it passed? So only so they knew when Yom Tov?
Every month they made the Chodesh a special announcement. And when they made that announcement, in the time of the first Beis Mikdash, they would light torches. In the time of the second Beis Mikdash, after the Bezdin said Mekudesh, they sent out the Shluchim. You clear? Now, when the second Beis Mikdash was destroyed, they continued this. As long as Yidden lived in Eretz Yisrael, which is a couple of hundred years after Churban by Yesheni, maybe 300 years, it was a long time, well after the Churban, they would still be Mekadesh HaChedesh B'Nei in Yerushalayim and send out Shluchim. So if you lived closer, you kept one day Yom Tov because the Shluchim came to your community. If you live beyond 13 days or 12 days, you have to take off the 2 Shabbos and the Yom Kippur. And if you could, the way they ruled it was, if you didn't know on Tishrei, so you didn't know Pesach also. Even though Pesach you have 1 day more for travel. It's possible that you live, let's say, 13 days journey from Yerushalayim. So Tishrei, the Shluchim didn't get to you on time, but Nisan they did. Lei plug Rabbanan. If you kept 2 days Yom Tov Tishrei, you kept 2 days Yom Tov Pesach, and the Ikar Chiddush was you kept 2 days Yom Tov Shavuos. Even though Shavuos has nothing to do with the days of the month. Shavuos is 50 days after Pesach, so everybody could have kept 1 day Shavuos. Anybody who lived outside of the zone, that there was the Shluchim that reached them in Tishrei, so both Pesach and Shavuos also, they kept 2 days Yom Tov. You with me so far? Yeah. Beis Mikdash is destroyed, they continue doing this whole thing. Then they kicked the Yidden out of Eretz Yisrael. When Christianity became dominant in Rome, 3rd century, 4th century, they kicked the Jews out of Israel. When they kicked the Jews out of Israel, the Jews did a few things. Number one, they completed the Talmud Yerushalmi. After the Talmud Yerushalmi was completed with the Talmud Bavli, they finished the Talmud Yerushalmi because they were anticipating being kicked out of Eretz Yisrael. And number two, a rabbi named Rabbi Hillel as opposed to Hillel without rabbi, made a calendar that's going to go till Mashiach. When he made that calendar, he was Mekadesh every Chodesh. He had the koyach to give sanctity to every Chodesh till Mashiach comes. He made a calendar when there's going to be a leap year. He made a calendar when there's going to be 29 days in a month, when there's going to be 30 days in a month, when you're going to add an extra day to a year to make up for the loss of minister to the sun and the moon, whatever it was. He made a calendar, a very complicated calendar, till Mashiach. He's Makadesh every Chodesh. From the time Rabbi Hillel made a calendar, there's no reason anybody keeps 2 days Yomtov. None. You with me? So what if 2 days Yomtov? We know for sure. We know for sure when Yomtov is. You have a calendar. The answer is minig aviseinu b'yadeinu. That since our ancestors had a custom to keep 2 days Yomtov, we still keep 2 days Yomtov. So I'm asking you, is that a good excuse? It's kind of poor. How many people can't work for how many more days because of minig aviseinu? Really? You don't put on film. Millions of films are not put on because the minig aviseinu b'yadeinu. It's a funny reason. So, like everything else, Chassidus has its own opinion. What does Chassidus say? That the real reason we keep 2 days Yom Tov is not because of Sveika Deyema. It's not because they're not sure when Yom Tov is. It's not because in the olden days it's Shluchim. It's because every Yom Tov has 2 themes. And you can't mix the borscht with the coleslaw. You understand? The middle Rebbe said you can't mix this food with this food. The first day of Sukkot is one theme. Let's call it Ahavas Yisrael. The second day of Sukkot is another theme, the Simcha of water. The first day of Pesach is Yetzias Mitzrayim. The second day of Pesach is Refuah, is healing. The first day of Shavuos, Hashem gave us the Torah. The second day of Shavuos, we took the Torah. Every Yom Tov has 2 themes. And by dividing them up into 2 days, you give each day its full power. You with me? So the Alter Rebbe said, if I had the power, I would institute Yom Tov Sheni Shegolis in Eretz Yisrael. Meaning to say that this is really, really, really radical. It's possible that after Mashiach comes, the Chacham are going to get together, the Sanhedrin are going to sit down, and they're going to paskin that even in Yerushalayim they should keep 2 days Yom Tov. Minat Torah is only 1 day. But the Chacham have a keich to add a second day. And what's going to be the reason? It's not because of the sake of the Yom, it's not because the Shulchan don't reach, it's because every Yom Tov has 2 themes, and if you live in Eretz Yisrael, you have to chunk them together. Anybody been to Israel for Sukkot? Yeah? How do you feel about Simchas Torah? You were there this year. That's a lot of fun. Okay, who was there last Simchas Torah? They have no Shmini Atzeres. Think about it. They have no Shmini Atzeres. Our Shmini Atzeres is their Simchas Torah. So it's like a mess. There's no Shmini Atzeres. They're missing like a whole thing. When we have Shmini Atzeres, they have Simchas Torah. When we have Simchas Torah, they're doing whatever. Think about the Sukkah. It's not Yom Tov anymore. They have 1 day Yom Tov. We have 2 days Yom Tov. And we have 2 days Yom Tov. The real reason is not because we're not sure when Yom Tov is. The real reason is because every Yom Tov has 2 themes. Anyway, now that we went off on this long tangent, let's get back to the point. The point is, Pesach is about going out of Mitzrayim. Now, who knows the Chassidus? Kinderlach. What is the meaning of Geulah? What is the meaning of Geulah? The meaning of Geulah is that the Eibishter redeems them. Now, I want you to think about this. Okay? You went to high school, I think so, right? You didn't go to Old Torah, right? You learned about the history of Europe? You ever hear of the 100 Years' War? The 30 Years' War, the 7 Years' War, oh my God. How do you fight a war for 100 years? How many people die? There's not enough soldiers to die in 100 years. What's a 100-year war? What does it mean, 100 Years' War? What does it mean? Does anybody have any idea? 100 Years' War is like Hamas's strategy. You fight, you get plummeted, you get pummeled, come back again, 100 Years' War, you fight a war, you win it, it's not over. You fight a war, you win it, it's not over. Why? Because you haven't crushed your enemy. You haven't defeated your enemy. You know what it means to defeat your enemy? What you need to do to Hamas. Make them curse the day they started up. Make them regret starting up a Yidden. That's how much you have to hurt them. And these Mishagoyim got to get that message. And we have to teach it to them. Because if they don't teach it to them, they're coming back tomorrow. And in 2 days again. And in 3 days again. Rachmana litzlan. You have to win. Not because Jews like to kill people, but because it has to end. In Europe fought wars. They just never ended. They just fought, and then a bunch of soldiers died. So, okay, ceasefire. You know what ceasefire means? You'll bury your dead, I'll bury my dead. We'll take our sick to the hospital, We'll rearm, we'll meet again tomorrow and kill each other some more. See you tomorrow for more killing. That's how they fought wars in Europe. So you have to win a war. You know, winning a war is called in Lubavitch? I'll tell you what it's called to win a war in Lubavitch. It's called Pod B'Sholem Nafshi. B'Sholem means the war is over. We have to punch Hamas and punch him 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 and say, please stop punching. Now, if you know how nuts Hamas is, like my student told me this morning, the Abish is making Hamas is hard, like in Mitzrayim. They make because they're being so irrational. But this is their strategy. We have to beat them and beat them and beat them. Say, please, please, please. One time, once, Israel gets the Arabs to say, please, 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 it's over. You have to embarrass the Arabs. You have to humiliate them. You have to shame them. Because until you do that, they didn't lose. Just taking a break, come back tomorrow. The war never finishes. You know what's a real example of finishing a war and the war is over? The atomic bomb. When we dropped the atomic bomb on Japan, what happened? They didn't just stop fighting. They said, let's be friends. There's a very big difference in stopping the fight and let's be friends. The Germans lost World War I. Was the war over? I'm asking you. You understand? So winning a war doesn't mean that the hostilities are suspended, like they say in the newspapers with such wonderful elegance. Peace has returned, has still Baba-Mises. A war isn't over until it's over. And you win a war because you fight it till the end. What's the secret to winning a war rather than just having ceasefire? What's the secret? Girls, I'm asking you a question. What is the secret to winning a war rather than, you know what the answer is? That you have a weapon that your enemy doesn't have, that makes the war so imbalanced that they regret fighting with you. If you're punching and I'm punching, we continue punching. But if I come up with a secret tool that you don't have, that creates such imbalance, such out of balance in the war, one side says, oh, we can't do this. And so that's when the war finishes. And if you know Chassidus and you know the Chazal, what was David HaMelech's secret for Pada B'Sholem Nafshi Mikrav L'Kibarab Mayamadi? You know how David HaMelech won the war decisively? You know what secret weapon the Yidden had, David HaMelech had? Tilim, Kapitel Samach Tes. I don't know where she is, Kapitel Samach Tes. David HaMelech was an old man. He couldn't fight anymore. David HaMelech sat in the palace. He was kicked out of Yerushalayim. He was in hiding. And he said Tilim. And as he said Tilim, Avshalom's soldiers, the other side was praying that Hashem should protect David HaMelech. You can't exactly fight with your enemy when you're hoping that your enemy is going to win. It messes it up, you understand? That's Pada B'Sholem. And that, girls, is Yetzias Mitzrayim. Yetzias Mitzrayim doesn't mean that you break the chains of your enemies. Yetzias Mitzrayim doesn't mean you take a big cutter and you break the locks and you get out of Geulah. Yetzias Mitzrayim means that the enemy is gone. And the enemy is not gone because you beat him up. They'll come back tomorrow. The enemy is gone when you're free. The story of Yetzias Mitzrayim is not a story of Mitzrayim, it's a story of Yidden. Hashem came at the moment of Yetzias Mitzrayim and he put the lights on. Boom, the lights went on. They didn't stay on for long, but they went on. When those lights went on, you know what happened? The Jews felt not afraid. The Jews felt not uncertain. The Jews felt not weak. The Jews felt not lazy. They felt strong and clear, and they ran out of Mitzrayim. Because Hashem didn't take away their enemy, Hashem gave them freedom. In Chazal, it's brought in Chassidus as a qualification of that Chazal, Shem Geulah Chadu. All Geulas are one. A Geulah doesn't happen because you win a fight. A Geulah happens because the fight is over, and there's a big difference. Winning a fight means tomorrow we'll fight again. The fight is over, we'll never fight again. How do you fight in a way that you're never going to fight again? You win with a higher power. That's Yetzias Mitzrayim. Pesach, we went out of Geulah, not because the Mitzrayim got 10 makas and they were sick and tired of being beaten up. Hashem revealed himself not to punish Mitzrayim, to give us freedom. What do you think is going to happen when Mashiach comes? Mashiach's coming. What do you think is going to happen? You have all these ideas. I don't know what. There's going to be an eclipse. There's going to be an earthquake. There's going to be a volcano. There's going to be a tornado. We're all going to wake up and it's Nacht Getag. Hashem is going to simply turn on the lights. When Hashem turns on the lights, it becomes clear. And it becomes clear, so there's a lot of aspects to that clarity. One of the aspects of that clarity is what we say on every single Yomtov. Ata v'chatonu mikol ha'amim. Ahavta isanu. V'ratzisa banu. V'reimamtanu mikol alashenes. V'kidashtanu. V'kedaftanu. V'shimcha agol v'kodesh aleinu karas. And all those news who don't speak Hebrew means Jews. After when Mashiach is going to come, the whole world is going to see, including the fakakta yidden with the self-esteem issues, that the Eibishter chose us. That's what Geulah means. And the Chazal say all Geulas have a commonality. You don't become free because there's no enemy. You become free because you're empowered with freedom. Yitzias Mitzrayim didn't happen because Mitzrayim was beaten up. Yitzias Mitzrayim happened because the Eibishter revealed himself to the Jewish people. And that's what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. So the Tzemach Tzedek told us, Einiklach. Pesach is the season for Geulah. That means, Pesach is the season not only that our enemies are defeated and they're pushed in the garbage, like Hamas, Yemach Shemam V'Zechram. Yemach Shemam V'Zechram, they're Shoyim Gemurim. They have to be defeated. And Jews don't like killing people. That's a big problem that we have. But if we want to not kill people, we have to kill Hamas now. Business off, till it's finished. It's very good, I'm telling this to you, because tomorrow you're going to go and you make strategy and you make plans to kill Hamas. I mean, this is the blind leading the deaf. I mean, what kind of power do I have? What kind of power do you have? We're sitting in Brooklyn and we're talking about how the Israeli generals should fight the war. This is really, really helpful. But it's true. It is true nevertheless. Pesach is not a time that we defeated our enemies. Pesach is a time that Hashem gave us a secret weapon. He flipped on the lights and the enemy's out of the way. He's gone. It's called Pada B'Sholem. So it says in Chassidus that Mashiach is going to be the same thing on an even higher level. When we were born as a nation, Hashem flipped on the lights and He gave us freedom. When Mashiach comes, Hashem is going to flip on the lights. What's going to happen next? You know what's going to happen next? You know what's going to happen next? Hashem is going to flip on the lights. He's going to flip a little too hard and the switch is going to break and then it's not going to go off after that. You see? But Yitzias Mitzrayim, Hashem flipped on the lights and He flipped it off after a little bit. And we found ourselves out of Mitzrayim, but we were not exactly ready for it all. When Mashiach comes, Hashem is going to flip on the light and it's going to be, the switch is going to break. The light's going to stay on. That's freedom. That's Geulah. That's Pesach. The inyan of Pesach is that the freedom that we have, I'll get to in a second, comes from the Eibishter. So the Tzemach Tzedek told us, Einiklach, the beginning of Pesach is the beginning of freedom, and the end of Pesach is the end of freedom. So just like after Mashiach comes, if the Alter Rebbe has his way, we're going to figure out how to have 2 days Yomtov in Eretz Yisrael. If the Alter Rebbe has his way, I suspect after Mashiach comes, we're going to figure out how to say a Shechayonu and Shvi Yishal Pesach and Achei Pesach also. Go ahead.
Wait, so I'm a little bit confused. Is the ikr that the enemy is completely gone, or that Hashem is revealed?
They're the same. Because the enemy is not completely gone unless you have a secret weapon. That secret weapon is Hashem. But the Hashem doesn't only come to the enemy. Hashem comes to us. You follow? The Rebbe made to this Mashiach. That the last day of Pesach, even when it's not Shabbos, we eat a third meal. And we wash. So in the Hasidic world, non-Chabad Hasidic world, they call it Baal Shem Tov's meal. The Rebbe Rashab said in Lubavitch a long time ago, "Das is Mashiach Seudah." This is the meal of Mashiach. And the Rebbe said, when you sit by the last day of Pesach, Mashiach Seudah, and you eat the matzah, and as the Rebbe Rashab added the other custom, and you drink the 4 cups of wine adult cases, the Rebbe said you were literally eating Mashiach. You're giving Mashiach an achiza, a physical hold in this world by eating the last meal of Pesach. At the end of the Yom Tov, you eat a matzah, and you drink the al-koisis, and you sing a Chassidish nigan, you chazar Chassidus, you talk about the Rebbe, you talk about Mashiach. You're bringing Mashiach down into a physical reality by eating the matzah. Okay, but I just want to say one more detail, and that is the following. When our Rebbe first became a Rebbe, the first few years, I don't know how many times he did it, the Rebbe made a Mashiach's dance. The dance of Mashiach. He did it, I think, twice, maybe 3 times. Like the first Pesach, the second Pesach, or the third, and he stopped. What's Mashiach's tanz? The Rebbe said that it says in Chassidus, says in the Sichos, that the last day of Pesach, the light of Mashiach shines. The last day of Pesach, the light of Mashiach shines. And since the Friedrich Rebbe said, Hine zeh oimed achar kasleinu, the Mashiach is right behind the wall, Mashiach is kum Mashiach. Mashiach is about to come. So the Rebbe, our Rebbe said, Zakei hara'ois, people with pure eyes can see Mashiach's tzidkenu. The Rebbe said that when he first became a Rebbe. Later on, the Rebbe became much more tzniistic. In the beginning, the Rebbe was actually more revealing than later. People with pure eyes are zeicha to see Mashiach. So we're going to sing a Mashiach song, and we're all going to get up, and we're going to do a Mashiach dance, and those who are a pure vision will see Mashiach. And the Rebbe got up, and they sang a niggin, and they danced, and I can guarantee you that the Rebbe saw Mashiach. If I say Zaki, the Rebbe was saying Zaki Arois, he's saying, I see Mashiach. The Rebbe did it a couple of years.
You're talking about Mashiach person or Mashiach era?
Mashiach the person, but however you understand the person on a pneumistic level, on a ruchniistic level. So the Rebbe basically said, we're going to dance, and I'm going to see Mashiach. We're going to dance Mashiach. Achron Shal Pesach is the last day of Pesach. We finish Geulah. The end of Geulah is Mashiach. So I will see you tomorrow, and after that I will see you after Pesach. Achar Shal Pesach.